Rolling through on a Friday, it's the Vegas Take, coming to you live from our beautiful studios here on the west side of Las Vegas. Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro, along with J.D. Sharp. You can find us on YouTube, streaming live right now, so you can see our faces for radio. Johnny handling his business behind the scenes as well, too. 702-257-5396 is the phone number. We were discussing a number of topics, of course, the controversial and, could be, watershed moment when it came to, the previous topic as far as, a man committing suicide and charges being brought against his girlfriend. But now we're going to kind of switch gears here a little bit, and we're going to head out to the left coast to Southern California. And we're going to talk a little bit with Mr. X, who, JD, look, it's a tough deal, right? Being a conservative in L.A., where you are being bombarded with whether it's comments, whether it's perspective, whether it's ideology that is nowhere near the conservative side of things for the most part. Now, there are a few, right? There's the James Woods. There's others who would take that.
You've got John.
Would be on the right.
Right, John Voight.
John Voight is one too, as well,
right,
too.
James. But Mr. X is, and it's not that he's extremist right or he's over the top right. He just doesn't think Donald Trump is a racist pig,
right?
And therefore he is extremely right.
And he's someone who would have been supportive of Republican presidents in the past, right? People like Ronald Reagan, people like the Bushes, Republican presidents who are, considered quote-unquote normal.
He doesn't believe
because I don't think Donald Trump is in that realm. He's just not the typical normal Republican president. Call me crazy. Call me. He's out of the box, JD. He's not someone who's conventional, who's going to
be honest,
handle things in the way that other Republicans have.
Up until 5 to 10 years ago, he wasn't even a Republican.
Right.
He was a Democrat. So He's changed his tune, which he's totally entitled to do. But Mr. X doesn't think that his entire purpose is to ruin the world and basically end the world through nuclear war. And in the eyes of Hollywood, that is an issue. So yes. that is why he does not use his real name, and he comes on as an alias.
And he joins us now here on the Vegas Take on the phone lines from Southern California, Mr. X, the conservative out of Hollywood. It's great to have you on. How's your Friday going, Mr. X?
Hello, gentlemen. My Friday is going well. No news here. No thirsty actresses that I've had to deal with this week. So
that's exciting.
Things are going okay so far.
Any festivities from last night, of course, with Halloween going down there in L.A.? What anything to share as far as fun stories?
The amount of slutty outfits that you see on women here, it actually decreases on Halloween because you can just drive through West Hollywood or Hollywood and see it every day anyway. So women generally, it was a little cold last night. So there were a lot of Daenerys Targaryens out there and stuff like that.
Right.
They were actually not very revealing. I was a little bit upset, to be honest.
Speaking of Daenerys Targaryen, David Benioff and his partner showrunner were just kicked off. Apparently, apparently they exited the Star Wars trilogy or the Star Wars project, and then it came out that they were kicked off the Star Wars project because of how poorly the Game of Thrones finale actually was. What really happened here? What are your thoughts on this? And how do they land a $200 million deal with Netflix out of it?
Here are my thoughts. I don't know who I hate more, the writers who ruined Game of Thrones or Disney. There is no company worse for Hollywood and this planet than Disney. I just am so tired of these guys milking every possible franchise for every possible dollar that it's worth. Just stop. I don't want to see any more Star Wars. I don't want to see any more Marvel. Just enough. Come up with an original idea. It's not that hard. And the Game of Thrones guys, that was clearly a case of they were just done. They just had enough, and they just said, let's just wrap this up. We don't care how it happens. They just destroyed it. It's true.
Yeah, it is pretty true. The end of Game of Thrones ended up being, now we're going to start an oligarchy. That was basically the entire premise of the show was to start an oligarchy.
It was an abomination.
And I got to say, hoping for not being saturated by Star Wars stuff is going to be tough sledding. Considering, look, I'm not even a Star Wars guy, but you had the trailer come out last week, and now it's just going to start ramping up all the Star Wars stuff.
I thought that was okay.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe that they're having another 3 movies and this stupid show about Boba Fett. Just enough, guys. Like, no, I don't care about this. At some point, people, please stop spending money on this and just go watch some original movies and shows.
So, JD, I think it's established Mr. X not a big Star Wars guy.
No,
okay?
no, and
No,
honestly,
I love the original 3
Right,
Star
Oh,
Wars
yeah,
movies.
okay.
It's just like, stop milking it.
he's not a guy. But I mean, George Lucas's net worth is $7 billion for a reason. He's making money hand over fist off this. But you're right, it's kind of gotten played out. I would say the first 2 in the early 2000s were okay. But I mean, did you see the one with Donald Glover?
Yeah, it was bad. Was that the Han Solo one?
Yes, it was.
Oh God, I couldn't sit through it. That one was terrible.
Yeah, I tried to watch half an hour and I had to stop.
No, and you said George Lucas has $7 billion, and this is not going to sound very conservative of me, but like, could he just be satisfied with $2 billion and not raping our childhood? Like, is that okay? Like,
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
can
like,
see
okay, fine. Like, you're only worth $2 to $3 billion now, and my childhood remains intact, and I don't need to see Jar Jar Binks. Come on, guys.
So, Mr. X, we had Halloween last night, of course, and I'm sure you didn't see a lot of costumes of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi around town last night. Of course, last Saturday, he was the terrorist leader who was killed by U.S. Special Forces. And, of course, you would expect, around the country, this is something that we would celebrate, something we'd be happy about because, a terrorist leader has been taken out, and that's going to...
austere religious scholar?
Exactly, right? Yeah. But it's something that you would think that would be a positive, something that would, end up being something that would bring the country together. Well, that hasn't necessarily been the case, and of course you're right there in the belly of the beast when it comes to liberals and a ton of Democrats. And I just wanted to get your perspective on how that all went down and what the reaction was down in Hollywood as far as his killing and the amount of basically credit, right, that President Trump got
or didn't get
for
how that went down.
Let's put it this way. Among the liberal community, the dog got a lot more credit than Trump. And, maybe rightfully so. He's the left and the right. We all love dogs.
We do.
The whole Washington Post thing with the austere religious scholar, like, yes, they did it. Yes, they took it down immediately. Yes, they're catching a lot of heat for it. But to me, like, that's like such a telling insight into idiotic liberals in America. Like, I remember, at the time when Trump was first elected and they were talking a lot about harboring terrorists in the U.S. and he was very concerned about, Muslims. And I had a lot of liberal friends who were posting on social media being like, if you're a Muslim from Iraq or Iran and, you want to come here illegally, you can stay at my apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what is wrong with you people? Like, stop. Like, just, you're so uneducated and idiotic. Like, this situation is not I get you're sitting in Hollywood and just blogging and doing your thing, but like that's not reality. Like, go to Iran and see how it really is there, and like go to Israel. Like, this is not. It's just frustrating, and that's the thing about the Washington Post article that was really crazy is that people really feel that way. Like, that wasn't some Muslim terrorist that wrote that. That was some spectacles wearing, kale juice drinking idiot that works at the Washington Post that thought that, this guy probably shouldn't have died.
And the worst part of the thing is he's probably a Yale graduate or an MIT graduate or a Stanford graduate. But no, honestly, that has not gotten enough traction. How do you refer to a clear terrorist as an austere religious scholar just to downplay what Trump did? I mean, like, and you're right. It does show you the lengths that particular parts of mainstream media will go to make the president look bad. And to me, it was one of the worst things I've seen in a long time. And Brian earlier this week asked me a question. He said, do you find it worse that, or I mean, he was talking about how Trump downplayed Obama's killing or Obama being involved in the killing of Osama bin Laden when he said, al-Baghdadi was a bigger deal than Obama. And obviously Trump's going to do that because that's just who Trump is. But I think it's much worse. And I would feel much worse if I was a member or if I had a family member who died at 9/11 and I heard the Washington Post or I saw the Washington Post refer to this clear-cut open terrorist as an austere religious scholar just to make the president of the United States look bad and to discredit, what happened. And let's be honest, it was a good thing for the United States and the world when al-Baghdadi died.
And look, I'll acknowledge, as someone who's a never Trumper, I thought that the use of that wording was wrong. I don't think that should have been that. They should have absolutely said it. But that being said, look, and the tweets, by the way, have come fast and furious, right, Mr. X, across the entertainment community on both sides, really. I mean, you have Chuck Woolery going out saying, look, it's breathtaking. Bernie Sanders acknowledges Kurds and other U.S. allies after al-Baghdadi raid, not U.S. forces or Trump. And then you go to the other side, go to someone like Rob Reiner, who says, your terrorist, my terrorist was bigger than your terrorist. I mean, it's pretty much, a polar opposites of each other across the board. And there are just a number of other tweets out there from both sides that are pretty much along the same lines.
It is, and it's crazy, and it to me it comes back to the media, man. If everyone in this country was happy and nice to each other and agreed on politics, there would be so many reporters and news networks that would have they'd be out of work.
They would have nothing to talk about.
No, they wouldn't. And Trump could literally cure cancer tomorrow, and people would be like, "Oh, Trump in a devastating blow to the medical industry."
Or they would say that he bragged about it. He was too arrogant in curing cancer, despite the fact that he saved 75 million lives in the process.
It's crazy. It's like that. That's just how the media is, though. Like, I'm literally looking at Google News as we speak, and it's like, it's like. One thing is like Trump going to be impeached presently, and then the opposing what's all this Trump impeachment nonsense? Like, it's just the media are so ridiculous.
What if I told you?
Look, I'd push back on the media stuff though, because look, there's certain parts of the media, right, where there's people who are actual journalists, and then there are pundits, right? There are talking heads, there are people that have an agenda. There are shows that you can see it on every network, whether it's Fox, whether it's CNN, whether it's MSNBC. People have their shows, they have their point of view, whether it's Chris Matthews, who hates Trump, right? Or whether it's Laura Ingraham, who is all in on Donald Trump, or whether
I don't know, man.
But I'm telling you, Mr. X, I'm telling you, and the people. By the way, people like Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo and some of these other people, they have the reason they have an axe to grind. And I would argue, by the way, that you don't necessarily see it on their shows, is because the president of the United States has personally gone after them, has personally attacked them. So that's why there's an animosity there.
The egg, though, dude. Trump doesn't just randomly reach out and start harassing media members. These guys absolutely destroy him, and then he defends himself. Trump has better things to do than just suddenly randomly go off. He's doing it when they're literally calling for him to be assassinated. And the thing is, you can say there's probably some media members that have more integrity than others, but
there's a lot that are journalists. Yeah.
No, there's not. But the problem is that the company they work for gives them an agenda,
and they get paid for it.
They have to toe the company line.
Right.
I'm sure that there's plenty of Fox News reporters that are good people and intelligent and rational, but they have to fanatically defend Trump, just like CNN has to do the opposite.
And the deal is the last 10 presidents that have been maliciously attacked by the media, they haven't responded to the media, and so the media doesn't know how to deal with it. They've never dealt with a president who actually fires back, and then they think that they've had a free pass to say what they want. Now, let me tell you this, Mr. X. If you go to Google and you type in Donald Trump, the first 21 pages of articles that you see are going to be not from conservative outlets or have a positive Donald Trump or have anything positive towards Donald Trump. And to me, that is crazy. That is crazy.
And that's the problem. And and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not sitting in my bunker with a tin hat on, but you have to follow the money. And I feel like there's obviously some ulterior motive, and whether it is just sort of sowing the seeds of dissension and that's it, fine. But there's clearly the media entrenched themselves in some way, and in this case, fully. I've never seen the media so violently opposed to a president. I mean, I remember W's 2 tenures, and they grumbled, and the entertainment industry didn't love him, but never like this. This is insane. It's just 24/7 anti-Trump nonsense, and it's it just gets old, and it accomplishes nothing. It doesn't change anybody's mind.
And the craziest part about it that no one is ever talking about is if Donald Trump say the media gets what they want and Donald Trump is no longer president, how much do their ratings drop when they have nothing else to
Exactly.
talk about. So I mean, basically,
I know, what's Saturday Night Live going to do?
Yeah, what are they wishing? No, I'm serious.
Well, the show's been around for a while, so they're obviously going to transition to topics. But
what is
Yeah,
what is their end game? Is their end game? They're doing this so they can lose 50% of their revenue. Is that their goal? Because that's what's going to happen.
Honestly, I think that they probably have looked at the Democrats that are potentially going to run against Trump and realize there's no hope anyway, so they can just freely bash him and nothing's going to happen. I don't think Trump's going to be impeached. I think if Elizabeth Warren runs against him, it's going to be a disaster and a landslide. And
It'll be a joke.
We'll see.
But
yeah.
I mean, if Joe Biden's president or Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders or Tulsi Gabbard, people just aren't going to care about politics as much as they care about politics with Donald Trump. And people caring about politics means people paying attention to politics, and the outlets that discuss politics, like these news networks, whether it's through social media or actual TV or radio, and that translates to advertising dollars because of viewership and ratings. And those are going to go down the drain if Donald Trump is not the president moving forward. And that's what that's what they're trying to push for, despite the fact that it's going to literally kill their business. They're trying basically they're begging to get themselves shot in the foot. And to me, that's unbelievable.
Mr. X joining us here live on the Vegas Take. Chris went in for Brian Shapiro along with J.D. Sharp here live in studio. Of course, Mr. X works in the entertainment industry, the left-heavy entertainment industry as a conservative. So,
I might retire now since I just bet $20 million on the Astros to lose the World Series.
Oh, you're right there. You're hanging out with Mattress Mac. You're doing that thing, man.
I wish I had, man. That was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
So Mr. X, JD brought up the
we talked to him yesterday on the show, Mr. X.
No way.
Yes,
great.
yes.
How's
he
he
did.
doing? I think he made more money on that deal than lost. But
I agree.
Obviously. Yeah,
so you and JD, Mr. X, you guys brought up, of course, the Democratic candidates for the 2020 election. It's going to be a wild year here coming up. And now, look, you think a lot of the liberal left in Hollywood, they'd be all in, whether it's Joe Biden, right, or whether it's Elizabeth Warren or some of these front runners. But the case is that apparently Kamala Harris is a huge favorite among a lot of the people down there in the entertainment industry. What do you make of that, Mr. X? Is that someone who's basically polling in single digits, right? I think Kamala Harris as an individual is very impressive. Her resume is impressive. She's someone I think who would be very capable as president of the United States. And many people think, look, if she's doesn't win the presidency, which is a very high likelihood, right? She's going to end up being a senator in California. But what do you make of the enamoration for Kamala Harris down in that community?
Here's the problem: is that I've got obviously dozens and dozens of absurdly liberal friends, and I have to choke back my bile when I'm talking to them about politics. But here's the issue: is that every week they're telling me about the next Democratic candidate. Like, I'm not kidding you. Literally yesterday, they were telling me that Sanders is the guy and that everybody's endorsing him and that he's the guy and he's going to do it. And here comes Bernie, and now you're saying Kamala Harris. Like, are they all just going to run? Is it just going to be like 5 of them
Yeah, they
together?
have to weed it out at some point.
No, they can't. And that's the problem, is that they're so divided that I'm afraid it's going to prevent them from, if they were all rallying behind, and like this is the craziest thing, and this is exactly what happened when he ran against Hillary. I think that any decent Democratic candidate probably would have beaten Trump. For basically a meme like Trump to be elected president in this country, he has to literally run against the Antichrist, and that's what happened. And that's the only way that there was even I remember what the Vegas odds were on Trump getting elected president when he first kind of entered the race, and I was in Vegas and I saw Dennis Miller, with talking live at one point, and they dismissed him like it was a joke.
Yeah.
We're just talking about the real candidates. And so it's the same situation now. Like, I think that with how much animosity there is toward Trump, the Democratic Party would probably have a pretty decent chance of knocking him out, but not. They need to have a really strong candidate that all the idiot celebrities and all of the disgusting.
Are you doing laundry?
What's that?
Are you doing laundry?
Exactly.
I thought I heard the dryer going in the background there. It's pretty cool.
No, that was my dog tapping her feet on the floor.
Oh, okay, fair.
Off the house trying to get a treat.
Are you going to give her a medal after this?
She doesn't deserve one. She stinks. So I'm gonna give her a bath after this one. But yeah, no. But the point is, like, I think that the Democrats really would have a solid chance, but it's starting to almost get too late, and it shows just like politics is really not all that much about actually fixing the issues of the country. It's about personal gain. And if these, one or two of these Democratic candidates started really endorsing each other and rallying behind someone, like, they would have a chance, but they're all just a joke. They're all just other sides of the same coin.
I got to admit, though, I still think Joe Biden is the guy that's going to end up being because I'm telling you, the mentality is not just about entertainment, the entertainment industry here. It's around the country. There are a lot of people, particularly on the left and Democrats, who have this mentality of, you know what, we need to right the ship. We need to somehow get the country back to some type of normalcy. Because, look, even you have to admit, even as someone who voted for Donald Trump or supports Donald Trump, it's been just crazy, hasn't it, for the last 3 years? It's just been bonkers back and forth. And even if you are a supporter or you're someone like me who doesn't support Donald Trump, it has been mentally exhausting. Not just covering this guy, but just just from every story to every situation to every dramatic thing that goes down. And I think there's a significant portion of the American public that just want to say, hey, can we just get back to some type of normalcy or some type of,
absolutely,
where politics is not front and center, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I agree with you, and I'll be honest. I think that going into this, I definitely felt that Joe Biden had the best shot because he's really just like a less obnoxious Trump. Let's be honest. Like they're the same guy. The policy, like he's slightly more left. And, but he's popular just because of his relation, to Obama. But like, I think that he, with all the nonsense that has happened with him with Ukraine and all this stuff recently, like he definitely seems like not the strongest candidate. I do feel, again, though, like if all of the Democrats had rallied around Joe Biden initially, but I tell you, man, I talk to my liberal friends, they hate Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that they're going to vote for Trump over him, because they're not. I mean, let's be real. If it's Biden and Trump, every liberal is voting for Biden, and they're going to be grumbling about it the way they did about Hillary. But, that's not going to be the case going into it. Like, I definitely think that there's going to be a lot of support for Kamala Harris, a lot of support for Bernie Sanders, and Buttigieg, Warren. They're all in it to this extent. It's just super divided. I do think, though, that they hate Trump enough that whoever emerges from on that side, and I use that word literally,
yes,
they're going to rally behind them to an extent.
Mr. X joining us here live on the Vegas Take with his perspective as someone who works in the entertainment community as a conservative in a very heavy left industry. Mr. X, we do appreciate the time and your thoughts and your input, sir. We hope you have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon, okay?
All right, guys. Have a good one.
There you go.
Thanks a lot, Mr. X.
Mr. X joining us, talking all things politics and the perspective of someone who was, in the belly of the beast down there in Southern California in the entertainment industry. It's the Vegas Take coming your way on a Friday, 2 hours down, 1 to go. Joining us next, he is the host of Sports X Radio right here on KDWN. We're going to get into some college football, maybe some NFL, and talk about all the goings-on this weekend with Ken Thompson here on the Vegas Take. I'm Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro along with J.D. Sharp. We'll be back right after this.